we had a very apologetic attitude as South Africans. You know, like Americans are much better at this. You know, like everything was always better if it came from the States. Like it wasn't cool to be South African, and I've always had a problem with that because it is cool. It's cool to be yourself, right? No matter what that is, even if it's not cool, that makes it cooler, right? For me, you know, just to experience somebody who's doing something that is sincere and they love it, it's moving. I feel like that should be anyone's goal as an artist. To be a working player, you've got to wear a lot of different hats, and you've got to be a lot of, you kind of got to smile, fit in, nail the gig, be a pleasure to work with, and then get out of there and go to the next one. It's a different thing if you're playing, and you can be sincere about that. I know guys who are really, and that's beautiful. I think, you know, that is their truth. But there's other areas of music, you know, like where it's more about the art. And like I said, for me, I feel it's almost necessary to disrespect, you know, the traditions. You know, like you have to break the rules. You know, I get shut down about that maybe, but I feel strongly about that. I'm Cesare Cassarino. I'm a freelance bass player from Johannesburg. I've played with more people than I can remember, honestly. I'm not just saying that. There's some highlights over the years, some special things that I've done. Some of them are for musical reasons, and some of them are for just because it was a great experience, whatever it might have been, you know. Something that I might mention in that category would be a gang of instrumentals. I joined them at some point when they were traveling a lot. Had a really great time, like a real nice family vibe. Played a lot of festivals, on a plane every weekend, great hotels, all that kind of thing. And then, you know, on the other end of the spectrum, no planes, like hardly any money, is one of my current bands, Deep Spacer. You know, we play like really out there improvised rock. Yeah, it's improvised music. I suppose the vehicle is prog rock or post rock, if you want to call it that. But you know, the players are obviously have got like very strong musical personalities. So there's a strong sort of John Scofield Uber Jam undertone about the product, even, you know, the band. Even though, like, you know, we're playing some of the tunes we're playing like Nirvana covers, and like absolutely destroying them. So those are the two ends of the spectrum. You know, the kind of things that I've done. Tiny little bars in Melville, you know, like for a couple of R100 or a couple of R1,000, not much. And that's like the main thing is that I enjoy it. You know, whatever I'm doing, like I have to enjoy it. Like I can't be in a situation where I'm thinking just about the money. I don't know what it is about my personality, but I have to really respect something about the situation. So I've played Afrikaans music in the beginning. You know, I started in a band called US Tonteldoos in Dwarstrekkers in high school. You know, that later on became Battery 9. I played in Battery 9 for a while. All kinds of things. Anton Goosen. There's a couple that I won't mention because they're not very popular in the newspaper right now. They're in big trouble because they're not. They're troublesome people. Yeah. But you know, like I've played a lot of background jazz stuff over the years. I've recorded a couple of interesting fusion and jazz things along the way. I've done studio sessions. I taught at the National School of the Arts for 8 years. And I just generally am obsessed with music, as I think it's a quality I've identified in you as well. You know, I'm completely obsessed with it, and I love everything that challenges me. And in the morning when I wake up, that's one of the first things I'm thinking of. You know, still after over 30 years, and I'm sure it'll be like that forever. I just really love it. I'm an electric bass player, primarily. I've played a lot of double bass over the last 10 years, just out of, necessity, because a lot of that style of music, to be authentic, it requires one to play the right instrument, to get the right sound, the right decay, the right presence in the mix. It comes down to being true to that situation. If I'm playing the blues, I'd like to play in that style. If I'm playing reggae, I want to be as close as possible to authentic. And that goes for jazz as well. When I'm playing jazz, you know, in the early days, I'd come in with my electric bass and it was more of a fusion thing. But we were still playing jazz tunes, but it was a lot more crazy. It was a lot more free. But at some point, it became important to play the double bass. So the last 10 years, that's been part of my journey. Even though I still don't feel like a double bass player, you know. There are guys out there that I follow on Instagram. You know, you're on Instagram, you scroll through these guys that just play so incredibly well. So I've sort of like, it's a thing I do 3-4 times a week, and yet I feel like this is my instrument, you know. It's not that you know, maybe one day I will embrace it and take it to a deeper level, but I'm an electric bass player. This is a very old instrument. I bought it from a well-known guitar repairman in Joburg. I bought it in '99, I think. Most of it is a 77 Fender Jazz, and I think I paid 2,800 Rand for it, from Grant Fischer, yes. And I think he's still kicking himself. No. And when I got it, it didn't have the paint on it. I just left it that way because I felt it had like just something about the sound that was quite cool, and quite frankly, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on painting the thing. And like I've been reading, you know, like the paint chokes the sound of the instrument, so I was like, leave it, you know. And along the way, you know, I've tried to keep it as Fender as possible, but these pickups are pickups that I've made, hand wind pickups at home for a lot of my basses. There's some of them that don't have my pickups in. I don't tell people which is which. I mix them up just to see if people are listening. But I, you know, like as far as my pickups go, I try and keep it as traditional as possible. I'm not a traditionalist, but I just feel if you're going to make like a Fender pickup or something, you know, try and keep it as correct as possible. You know, I don't want to like that to be the way I'm remembered, because a lot of the stuff I do is completely like off the wall. You know, a lot of my newer projects are not correct in any style or in any philosophy of music. Over the years, I've become obsessed with a lot of different styles of music for a period of time. You know, I had this thing for electronica for a long time, primarily drum and bass, but like down tempo, you know, things that come from there. A lot of the dub side of electronica, and so I try to incorporate that into my playing. So my latest project with Jonathan Crosley is it's a trio with myself, Jonathan, and Etienne Westhuizen, who's a real accurate and sensitive pocket player. We're kind of playing improvised electronic music with Jonathan, who's obviously like quite a sophisticated musician, you know. But like I hear a lot of his interest in John Scofield and Bill Frisell coming through that. And then like the rhythm section would maybe be holding together some kind of electronic inspired groove. Often I'm not even using clean bass sounds at all. I've become obsessed with effects, as a lot of players have been for many years, but guys like Tim LaFave have opened that up for people. For some reason, he's the guy that opened people's minds. But bass players have been using effects forever. It's just, at some point it became acceptable. The guys made it cool. Yeah, obviously Tim Comerford from Rage Against the Machine and Chris Wolstenholme from Muse. I was always into that sound. And Doug Wimbish in the early 90s, I mean, he was a pioneer in terms of using effects in a sort of electronic style live music context. I've taken that as part of my journey. A real deep journey into effects, you know, and as you know, it can be quite expensive. My band Deep Space is about to release a track. It's a Brenda Fassi tune. It's called Weekend Special. I mean, we've done a lot. That band, we do a lot of like grunge era covers. Currently, I'm really enjoying playing that tune, not because it's a Brenda Fassi tune, just because we've absolutely perverted it. I have that side of me, you know, like, I mean, I must issue a disclaimer, you know. I'm very like, I feel very strongly about when you're playing styles of music that I feel it's important to honor that and to be true to the idiom. But when it comes to art, I feel the complete opposite. At some point, when I was in high school, a friend of mine gave me a tape. He'd just come back from LA and he had this tape and he said, check this out. And I was like, what's this? He's like, it's Mr. Bungle. I'm like, what's Mr. Bungle? He said, just take it home. And I went home and listened to that, and that changed my life. That opened doors that I like. I got into Spy versus Spy, John Zorn, that kind of thing. Later on, Front Thomas, Mike Patton's other projects, and just bands that really pervert things and change styles and take things out of context just because. and it's really exaggerated. And I think that tune kind of sums that up in my current musical context. Jito Beloy, I remember hearing Tananas for the first time when I was in high school, and he had obviously he had a very distinct style. He took what I considered the Jaco Pastorius tone and adapted it to African music. And in Mozambique, he was playing in a band called Pongola, which is a reggae band. But Tananas was kind of this world music. There were strong Caribbean influences in the music, and Brazilian, and there was this relationship between Ian Herman and Jito Beloy. Ian Herman was the drummer, who later on ended up playing a gig or two with Sting. But he was this local, and I heard this and I couldn't believe it. And I was going to the shows and I was checking these guys out, and this guy, Jito, he was such a beautiful human being. He was an incredibly humble person, and so gentle. When he was playing, when these guys were playing, I was hearing something that I'd never heard anywhere else in the world. It was something that came from South Africa, And Ian Herman had this strong African drumming style, and he would wear these shells on his feet, and while he was playing kit, he'd be stomping his feet. A lot of the grooves were African inspired, and some Brazilian and Cuban stuff. And he had his own voice, and I felt he was very creative. So Jito was one of the guys that got me. I started playing bass because of Jito and Sting. And with Sting, in the Police, I felt that he had a similar relationship with Stuart Copeland. Not, personally, I believe they didn't get along. But I just felt that the drummer was so creative and the bass was so rock solid, but the sound was so distinct. I found it beautiful, and just meeting the guy in person, he was such an incredible dude. Guys like that were very important to me, and Solly Letwaba, I'd hear him on the radio all the time. A lot of Maskandi bass playing, something very unique and special to South Africa. You didn't hear it anywhere else in the world. Back then, you turn on the radio and it was everywhere. And the bass guitar was always incredibly distinct in that music, in that style. Often, there were different strains of it, but the guys would play with a plectrum and get a really obnoxious rock and roll tone, and play a high register, melodic, repetitive fills, and it was just, it's in my DNA. Every now and then it'll pop up. I'll be like, what's that? And then a guy called Bakiti Kumalo. It's ironic that the first time I heard him was on an American recording by, Paul Simon. But he was in and around Joburg at the time doing session work, His fretless playing just absolutely blew me away. It was I'd obviously heard Jaco Pastorius, and it was, once you've heard that, you can never unhear it. But Bakiti Kumalo had some other colors in there that I felt, in my heart, growing up here at the time. Even though I didn't grow up, I grew up in the suburbs as, a white kid going to private school, but it was everywhere, I'm talking about this because I'm stuck between those two worlds in a way. At some point, I remember reading the Frank Zappa book, and he was talking about his hero, Edgar Varese, a great American composer. And I don't know if I got my facts right, but apparently this guy had a job in insurance at the time. So he'd go and do his gig in the day, sell people insurance. At night he'd come home and compose this absolutely out there music. And it's almost like the one needed the other. But I thought, I started music really late. I thought, well, I'm going to need to play as much as possible. So how am I going to get good? Well, Playing as much as possible. Okay, but I also want to make art. Okay, I'm going to have to balance the two. I want to have like those backgroundy things going on and the functions and the musical theatre, you know, whatever it might be. And then I'm going to have my crazy and personal things going on. And I think that's important for who I am. I don't know about you, but you got to be getting your chops together. You got to be improving. Oftentimes, not always, the best way to do that is to play for other people. Be out of your comfort zone. Play styles of music that really push you. Like I recently had to sit in for somebody in a band called Fuego, a Cuban band, and I had a very short space of time to learn this music. Like I'd always enjoyed Cuban music. I was like, oh wow, you know, I want to learn this stuff. And then like the guy's like, you got a gig, and you know how it is. Here we go. And then like I just had to figure out how to do this, and it was an incredible learning curve for a very short space amount of time because of the fact that oftentimes there was no one. Just in terms of the downbeat, like it was hard to feel the downbeats, and the bass was up in the air, and yet everything is hinges around the bass patterns, things like that. I find it very exciting, and that is when I feel alive as a freelancer. When I get thrown into situations and I've got to learn new styles of music. You know, I've had to play a lot of reggae over the years, and even though I feel I know what it sounds like, there are oftentimes I'm like, I've got to like get out of my Western funk and like rock and roll and jazz headspace to really play, like feel those lines. It takes me a bit of an adjustment time. So right now, I guess I'm in a space like that with some of my new projects where we just play completely improvised music, and then like all of that stuff comes out the woodwork. You know, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just goes in one direction, or the recording. I'm hoping that like I can blend all of that somehow and express it all of the things I've done, all the different kinds of music I've done, and I'm hoping it can come out and all the things I've listened to in when I'm expressing myself, you know, because I've played a lot of styles of music. Man, I've been in situations where I played in a chamber group. I played classical music badly, musical theatre, you know, like a lot of funk styles, jazz, fusion, Cuban music, a lot of Brazilian music, folk music, music. People take that music for granted. Like there's something very special about that music, you know. A lot of African styles of music, and many times I'll be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and the drummer will sing me the line, you know, because they grow up, you know, playing this stuff, and they'll sing it to me, and I'll go, I like this, and they'll be like, yeah, cool, that's fine, let's carry on. You know, and that's where I've learned the most in my life. On stage, I'll be on stage or I'll get a call, as you know, I goes like, what are you doing tonight? Do you want to do a gig? Yeah. So then you got to like get up there and you're kind of learning it on stage. I feel that's where I've learned the most, in the deep end. You know, I studied at the same place you studied. And you know, we had a lot of the same teachers, great musical mentors, you know. So I think you know where I'm coming from. But like, let's put it this way, when I got to Pretoria Tech, like the bottom line was like, if you can play this kind of music, jazz, you can play any kind of music, you know. But later on I realized that's not entirely true. You've got to go in there and like actually kick the music around a bit and get screamed at a bit. You got to get cucked out of it, or not necessarily cucked out, but you need to be in there with people who know how to do it. Anyway, so I played boom music badly, played a lot of African music badly. It's been an amazing journey because I still love it so very much. It's like one of the things that just gets me so excited. I feel so strongly about it. It's beautiful when I can see that in other people, you know? But it's a trap. Get a day job. No, I'm kidding.